It's a very common problem on E46 BMWs that your key fob stops working because the battery inside has stopped functioning. Now, these aren't like most key fobs where the battery is easily replaceable. It is soldered in place and the case itself is plastic welded together. So it is a bit of a trick to get it apart, but today I'm gonna take a shot at it. Aside from an extremely dirty workbench, here's what you'll need to do this. You'll need your key fob, of course, a utility knife, some super glue, replacement battery, link in the description where you can get this off of Amazon. It is unique to these batteries, or to these key fobs pretty much. A soldering iron, some solder, and optionally a tasty beverage. So I sure hope this camera angle is doing the trick because this is my old GoPro and it does not have a viewfinder. But the first thing that we're gonna need to do is actually get into this battery. Now to do that, you can see there's a seam here, and this one actually looks a little bit boogered up in places, like someone's tried to get in here before. But what you gotta do is take a knife and just start going around this seam. I see some people just shove the knife in there and kind of work it around. I recommend against that very, very aggressive approach, instead preferring to just kind of go around this a little bit at a time. Also less chance of messing it up and cutting myself, because you know, you want to avoid that generally. This does look like someone's been in here before, but we're gonna do our best. Interested to see what sort of stuff we find in here if this has been opened. You especially want to be careful around these edges because the PCB is right inside there with all the electronics on it, and it would be a real shame if those were to get broken. Because I'm incredibly impatient, here's the new plan. Hammer and blade. So as it turns out, the hammer method is far superior. You can see that's actually a pretty clean cut around there, and you can see the parts that we were cutting. There's a little bridge across here that was a bit tough to get there at the end. I can't tell if this is original battery or not, but let's see if we can work this circuit board out of here. I'm just gonna use a zip tie to pry with so I don't damage anything. Nope, gonna need more than a zip tie. Okie doke. There we go. Out it comes. Very little force necessary. So now we've got our two halves here. Just gonna set those aside because now what we're worried about is indeed this printed circuit board. And you can see here, you've got your 3 buttons, control ICs, and this is actually the wireless charging coil. This key does charge inductively when it's in the ignition and the car is running. I believe the reason for this is they wanted to be able to pull more current out of this than would have been feasible with a traditional replaceable coin cell. It would have run out too quick, so they put this rechargeable battery in here instead. Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna take my multimeter here. Oops. I'm gonna set it to volts. And these here are the 2 terminals for the battery. We're gonna see what it reads. 3 volts. That is actually a healthy battery. These are rated for 3 volts nominal. My new battery also says 3 volts. So I feel like this may have been replaced before, but I am going to replace it again and see if that makes this start working. Remember what I said a couple episodes ago when I was working on the Ninja about not knowing how to solder?
So the problem here is I've got to be prying on this while simultaneously desoldering it. So I'm just going to stick the probe underneath the battery so that there's some tension. And then once that solder heats up and melts, it should pop the terminal right on out. Now, if you were smarter than me, you would have a solder wick, but I don't have one of those. Here we go. That's one terminal. Two terminals. My goodness. And you can see that these terminals are different sizes. The battery will only go in here one way. There's the smaller and there's the larger, so it goes in like that. So I'm going to take my new battery, smaller goes here, larger goes there, and those are holes in the PCB that are sized that way. And now, just reflow the solder around it. There we go. And that is back in there. So let's make sure that it fits the case still. Sure seems to. So I'm actually going to go take this out and try it in the car and try to program it before gluing it back together, because then we're sort of beyond the point of no return. So let's go give that a shot. So it's not glued together, I'm just kind of holding the two key halves together, and I believe the process is to get in the car with all the doors unlocked, take this key, stick it in, go to position 2 and then off, then press and hold button 1 while clicking the second button 3 times. And the locks are all supposed to cycle, which they didn't. Let's try that again. 1, 1, 2, 3. Nothing. Okay, let's try again. On, off, holding 1, and hitting the second one. 1, 2, 3 times. Oh, they all cycled. Okay, let's get out of the car now. And I did try this before I replaced the battery and it did not work. Okay, so now this is lock. I am happy with that. I took a moment to reflow these two solder joints. This one was marginal and this one looked cold, but now they're all good to go. I'm gonna test the voltage on some pads here. This pad over here looks like negative and this one positive, just to make sure that the connections from the battery are good. That's 2.96, and from the battery itself, 2.96. So there's no voltage drop through those solder joints, so I consider those good enough solder joints. So let's go ahead and reassemble all this now. I've got some super glue here, pretty super stuff. Never actually used this brand before. Loctite super glue. I mean, I've used Loctite, but not their super glue. Let's see here. That apparently opens it. And wow, I need gloves for this because I am just going to absolutely destroy my hands with this. But here we go. So let's see, this goes like that, which means this goes like that. In goes our PCB. So that all just triple checking to make sure this all goes together correctly. It is in there all the way, right? It's backwards. I did it backwards. See, kids, this is why you go to college. So you don't make these sorts of dumb mistakes. I mean, at least if you go to college and make these dumb mistakes, you have like a college degree. There we go. Okay, buttons. And there we go. So I'm going to put the super glue on this half. Make sure there's no sprue or anything sticking up there. That's not coming off. I think that's all good. Need more light over here, but let's just run a little bead. This is a super glue gel, by the way. I kind of prefer it for this sort of stuff. I say as if I'm any sort of expert on glue and adhesives. It is nice though because you can run a bead with it, which is very useful in this application. There we go. Put the lid back on it for when I do my next one. Make sure there's no excessive sprue on this half. Just blow on that so it gets tacky, and then just smash them together. I'm gonna give that a good squeeze and hold it for a bit. I really wish these had like a indicator light on the key so that I knew when I was pressing them, but hey, whatever. That feels pretty solid. I did not line it up properly. Dang it. That's mildly frustrating. Oh well. So, despite reading at 3 volts, or 2.9 when I put the new battery in, it took a couple days of driving around with the key in the ignition for it to charge up all the way, but now it actually works fairly consistently. Lock, unlock. I had that backwards. That was unlock and then lock. It all seems to be good, and the key still works. It is a little bit ugly because I didn't quite get the two sides aligned properly. I was too worried about getting any super glue on my fingers, but there we go. That is a working key with keyless entry for my BMW E46. Just leave that there. So the problem that I'm having is that this is not full of car parts. Not that much would fit in there, but still, boo. If you like this sort of content, I'm actually in the middle of restoring this E46 back to some of its former glory. You can check out the playlist that this video is in for more videos on this. And don't forget to give a like, a comment, subscribe would be great. Hit the bell, that'd be even better. Those notifications and subscriptions go a long ways towards helping my metrics and whatnot. You know, the YouTube game. But no matter what you do, thanks for watching.